The Chapter 2 practice test. So number 1 and number 2, the directions state to rewrite the equation in slope-intercept form. So it must be in the form of y equals mx plus b, where m is your slope and b is your intercept. So you need to isolate y on the left side and get everything equal to a value times x plus another value. So in number 1, in slope-intercept form, you will have y equals negative 3/2 x minus 2. In number 2, you will have y equals 3/4 x plus 1. To graph these, you look at your intercept. Your y-intercept is negative 2, so you put your dot at negative 2. Then you have a slope of negative 3/2. So it's rise 3, 1, 2, 3. Run left 2 because it's negative. Put a dot. Rise 3, 1, 2, 3. Run left 2, 1, 2. Put a dot. Play connect the dots and there's your line. In number 2, your intercept is 1, positive 1, so you put your dot there. Your slope is 3/4, so rise 3, 1, 2, 3. Run 1, 2, 3, 4. Put a dot. And then you can go down negative 1, 2, 3 and left negative 1, 2, 3, 4 to create the negative slope, which is the positive slope. And again, play connect the dots. In number 3, and 4, you need to find the slope of the line. So you can either do rise over run, or go on the safe side, take the 2 points, and do m equals y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. You will find that in number 3, your slope is 2. Number 4, your slope is 1/3. Okay, it was 2 over 6, which reduces to 1/3. Number 5, which is steeper? A hill that rises 2 feet for every 10 feet run. So rise 2, run 10, or rise 2, run 15. Envision rising 2 and then running 10. Rise 2, run 10. As opposed to rise 2, run 15. Rise 2, run 15. This is going to create a steeper slope. Not by much, but it is going to be steeper because it has that greater slope. In number 6, which 2 lines are parallel? First, you need to identify line A, B, and C, and then find the slopes of each line. So the slope of A is 2/3, the slope of B is 2/3, and the slope of C is 3/4. Therefore, lines A and B are parallel because they have the same slope. On the next page, we have find the slope and y-intercept of the graph of the linear equation. So the convenient thing about number 7, is that it's already in slope-intercept form. So here you have y equals mx plus b. So your m is negative 2, which is your slope, and your intercept is negative 1. In number 8, you have to put it into slope-intercept form by taking the minus 1/3 x and adding it to both sides. So you'll get y equals 1/3 x and then plus 0, because when it's in slope-intercept form, and if there is nothing behind your slope and your x, it goes right through the origin. So your intercept is 0, your slope is 1/3. Same thing for number 9. You had to subtract 2 from both sides to get it into slope-intercept form of y equals mx plus b. Because this is going to give you, can't write the b, there it is. This is going to give you your slope and your y-intercept. So you'll see it's y equals 3/4 x minus 2. So your slope is 3/4, your intercept is negative 2. Explain how to find the x-intercept of the graph. Well, to find x-intercept, you always plug 0 in for y, and you solve. So if it's 0 equals 4x minus 2, add 2 to both sides, you get 2 equals 4x, divide by 4, x will equal 1/2. So your intercept, your x-intercept, is 1/2, 0. To graph the linear equation here, you want to find both your x-intercepts and your y because it's in standard form. So to find your x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y, right here. To find your y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x. So you'll notice that your x-intercept is 2, 0, so you put the dot there. Your y-intercept is 0, 3, so over 0, down negative 3. Put the dot there, and then you connect the dots and create your line. Same concept over here. To find your x-intercept, you plug in 0 for y. To find your y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x. The reason we do this is because the equation is in slope-intercept form. To find equations that are parallel versus perpendicular, that pass through a specific point, the main important piece that you need from this original equation is the slope. You need y equals, and for it to be parallel, it has the same slope. That's all the information from the original equation you need. Now you're going to use this point of negative 1, 6 to create your new equation. We know the new equation has to be y equals 2x plus some value. I have to find that value by plugging in negative 1 for x and 6 for y and solving for my intercept, my b. So once I solve, I can finalize and say, all right, y equals 2x plus, and then whatever my intercept is, and in this instance, it's 8. Perpendicular means opposite reciprocal. So again, when you have your original line, the only information you need from it is your slope. So if my slope is 2, the opposite reciprocal slope is negative 1/2. So I need to figure out, okay, this new line, which is y equals negative 1/2 x plus some value, I have to find that value. So I plug in the point negative 1, 6 into the equation to solve for my intercept. So I figure out, when I solve it, that my intercept is 5.5. So my new equation is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 5.5. In this next section, we're just talking about two slopes. When you have parallel lines, your slopes are the same. When you have perpendicular lines, your slopes are opposite reciprocal. So if you have a slope that is 2, the opposite is going to be negative, and then the reciprocal is 1/2. This next piece is very important. When you're given 2 points and you're asked to find or write the equation in point slope, slope intercept, and standard, the first thing you do is you always take your 2 points and you find your slope. So here I took 2 minus negative 3, so y sub 2 minus y sub 1, get 5, over x sub 2 minus x sub 1, so negative 2 minus negative 4 to get 2. So in this problem, my slope is 5/2. Then you don't need those points again. So you take your point, you take your slope, and you write your equation in point slope. So y minus y sub 2 equals m times the quantity of x minus x sub 1. So you can take either slope or either point, so y minus 2 equals 5/2 times the quantity of x plus 2, or you can do the other point and have y plus 3, because y minus negative 3, which is y plus 3, equals 5/2 times the quantity of x minus negative 4, which is x plus 4. After that point, you do not need to use negative 4, negative 3, or the point negative 2, 2 again. So take your point slope and put it into standard or slope intercept by distributing your 5/2 to your x and your 5/2 to the 2. So rewrite, you get y minus 2 equals 5/2 x plus 5. So in this, now we're starting to put it into slope intercept. So add 2 to both sides, you'll get y equals 5/2 x plus 7. So that is slope intercept. Then take slope intercept and go to standard form. So y equals 5/2 x plus 7. You're subtracting to get to standard form, which is ax plus by equals c, where a, b, and c have to be integers. A and b can't be 0, and a has to be positive. Subtract 5/2 x, you get negative 5/2 x plus y equals 7. A here cannot be negative, nor can it be a fraction. So I need to clear the denominator and the negative sign by multiplying the whole thing by negative 2. So negative 2 times negative 5/2 x gives me a positive 5x. Negative 2 times positive y gives me a negative 2y. Negative 2 times 7 gives me a negative 14. go through the same exact process with these 2 points. So find your slope, put the slope and 1 point into into point slope form. You could choose either or. And then take that form, go into slope intercept, find slope intercept, take that form, go into standard. You do not have to use any of the points after you find your slope. You have 2 jobs. You earn $8 for each hour X that you work at a restaurant hosting and $6 for each hour Y that you work as a hair washer. Your earnings for the pay period are $144. Write an equation in standard form that represents the the number of working X hours as restaurant host and Y hours as hair washer. So if you know you make $8 per hour, so $8 times however many hours you work as a host, plus the $6 per hour, so however many hours you worked as a hair washer, equaled the total amount of money that you earned. So you did $8 an hour times we don't know how many hours hosting at a restaurant, plus the $6 an hour times however many hours hair washing, and you earned $144. So if you look at this and you want to interpret the y-intercept, plug in 0 for X, which represents that you worked no hours as a host. So if you want to figure that out, you plug in 0, simplify, and get Y equals 24. What this means is that she can work 24 hours as a hair washer and 0 hours as a host to make $144. Or if you're finding the x-intercept, you plug in 0 for Y. Okay, so 8x equals 144, so x will equal 18 right here. So she can work 18 hours as a host and 0 hours as a hair washer and make $144. The graph at the right shows the relationship between temperature Y in degrees Fahrenheit and altitude X in thousands of feet. Find and interpret the slope of the graph. My suggestion, take the 2 points. Okay, as opposed to trying to do rise over run, take the 2 points, so 0.75 and 740. Change in Y over change in X will get you -5. The interpretation of this is the temperature drops 5 degrees Fahrenheit as the altitude increases. So every time your altitude increases by 1,000 feet, because it's over like -5 over 1, so as it increases that 1,000 feet, the temperature drops 5 degrees. So write an equation of the line. Anytime you're given something like this, I would write the equation in slope intercept because you have an independent and dependent variable. Okay, remember that independent variable is here, your dependent variable is here. So the temperature depends upon how high you are going, what your altitude is. So if your slope is -5, okay, Y represents the degrees Fahrenheit, so Y equals -5 degrees times X, which is your altitude, plus your 75. So that's where you can see that your y-intercept is. So interpret your x-intercept. So plug 0 in for y, and you'll get x equals 15. So what that means is that when your x-intercept is 15, down here, it is 0 degrees. So at 15,000 feet, the temperature is 0 degrees. What is the temperature at 11,000 feet? You must compute it with using the number 11 because this is in thousands of feet. So y equals -5 times 11 plus 75. You'll figure out that y equals 20. So at 11,000 feet, the temperature is 20 degrees Fahrenheit.